Most people are one conversation away from changing their entire life, but they never have that conversation. They go year after year, making the same mistakes, blaming the same circumstances, waiting for something magical to happen. Well, I'm here to tell you something that might sting a little bit, but it's the truth. Nothing is going to change until you change. I was 25 years old, broke, with nothing but lint in my pockets and excuses on my lips. I had a wonderful list of reasons why life wasn't working out for me. The economy was bad. My job didn't pay enough. I didn't get the right breaks. The government was taking too much in taxes. My relatives didn't help me out when I needed it. I had this whole story worked out, and I told it to anyone who would listen. I was a victim, and I wore that badge like it somehow made me noble. Then one day my mentor asked me a question that changed everything. He said, "Jim, how long are you going to keep this up?" I didn't understand what he meant at first. I said, "Keep what up?" He looked me straight in the eye and said, "How long are you going to blame everybody else for your situation? How long are you going to look outside yourself for the answers that are inside you?" That hit me like a freight train, because in that moment, I realized I had been lying to myself for years. The economy wasn't my problem. Plenty of people were doing well in the same economy. My job wasn't the issue. Other people with the same job were saving money and getting ahead. The government, my relatives, my circumstances, none of that was really the problem. I was the problem. My thinking was the problem. My philosophy was the problem. Here's what most people don't understand. Your life doesn't change when your circumstances change. Your life changes when you change. When your philosophy changes, when your thinking changes, when your daily disciplines change, that's when everything shifts. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need years to start seeing results. Give me 3 days, just 72 hours of doing things differently, and you'll feel like a completely different person. I know what you're thinking. 3 days? That sounds too simple. How can 3 days make any real difference? Here's the answer. 3 days won't solve all your problems, but 3 days of right thinking and right action will show you that change is possible. It'll prove to you that you're not stuck. It'll give you momentum, and momentum is everything. The difference between successful people and everyone else isn't talent or luck or connections. It's philosophy. It's how you think about your life and your circumstances. See, some people spend their whole lives wishing things were easier. They say, "I wish I didn't have to work so hard. I wish I had more money. I wish people would treat me better." But successful people don't wish things were easier. They wish they were better. They don't wish for less problems. They wish for more skills. That's a completely different philosophy, and it produces completely different results. I met a woman a few years back who came to one of my seminars. She was struggling in every area of her life. Her health was poor. Her finances were a disaster. Her relationships were falling apart. She came up to me afterward and said, "Mr. Rohn, I need to turn my life around, but I don't know where to start. It feels overwhelming." I told her, "Don't think about turning your whole life around. Just focus on the next 3 days. For the next 72 hours, do everything differently. Read different books, have different conversations, make different choices. Just 3 days." She took me seriously. For 3 days, she got up early instead of sleeping in. She read something positive instead of watching the news. She took a walk instead of sitting on the couch. She called someone who inspired her instead of someone who complained with her. She ate a salad instead of fast food. She wrote in a journal instead of scrolling through social media. Just 3 days of different choices. When I saw her 6 months later, she was a different person. Not because those 3 days solved everything, but because those 3 days showed her what was possible. They gave her proof that she could change. They built momentum. And she kept going 3 more days, then 3 more, then 3 more. That's how transformation happens. Not all at once, but one decision at a time, one day at a time. The question I want to ask you is the same question my mentor asked me. How long are you going to keep this up? How long are you going to wait for your ship to come in when you never sent one out? How long are you going to blame your past, your parents, your circumstances, your bad breaks? Because here's the reality. You can keep doing that for the rest of your life if you want. Nobody's going to stop you. But nothing will change, or you can make a different choice. You can decide right now that the next 3 days are going to be different. Not perfect different. You can decide that you're going to take full responsibility for where you are and where you're going. Not because everything that's happened to you is your fault, it's not, but because you're the only one who can do something about it. Responsibility is a beautiful word when you really understand it. It means responsibility, the ability to respond. Life is going to throw stuff at you. That's guaranteed. Bad economies, difficult people, unexpected challenges, that's all part of the deal. But you have the ability to choose your response, and your response determines your results. When I finally accepted responsibility for my life, everything changed. Not overnight, but it changed. I stopped waiting for someone to rescue me and started rescuing myself. I stopped blaming the government for taking my money and started figuring out how to make more money. I stopped complaining about my job and started developing skills that would make me more valuable. I stopped looking at successful people with envy and started studying what they did differently. That shift from victim to architect, that's the first step. That's day one of your transformation. And it starts with a simple decision. I am responsible, not for everything that's happened to me, but for everything I do about it. That decision, that philosophy, that's what changes everything. Because once you accept responsibility, you take back your power. You stop being a leaf blown by the wind and become the captain of your own ship. The life you want, the health, the wealth, the relationships, the sense of purpose, it's not as far away as you think. It's not on the other side of some impossible mountain you have to climb. It's 3 days away. 3 days of thinking differently, choosing differently, acting differently. 3 days of being the person you know you're capable of being. So what does day one actually look like? What do you do when you wake up on that first morning of your new life? Here's what most people get wrong. They think transformation is about adding more. More information, more activities, more goals, more complexity. But the truth is, day one isn't about addition, it's about subtraction. It's about cleaning house. It's about getting rid of all the garbage that's been holding you back. I remember when I started making changes in my own life. The first thing I did was clean out my apartment. Now, that might sound strange to you. What does a messy apartment have to do with financial success or personal growth? Everything. See, I had piles of magazines I never read, clothes I never wore, papers I never filed, junk I never used. And every time I looked at that mess, it reminded me that I was a mess. My external environment was a perfect reflection of my internal chaos. So I spent a whole Saturday throwing things away, organizing what was left, creating space, and something shifted inside me. When I walked into that clean apartment, I felt different. I felt like someone who had their act together. I felt like someone who could accomplish something. The external order created internal order. That's not mystical, that's practical psychology. But here's where it gets really important. Day one isn't just about cleaning your physical space. It's about cleaning your mental space. And that means taking a hard look at 3 things: the journals you keep, the books you read, and the company you keep. These 3 things are shaping your life every single day, whether you realize it or not. The journals you keep, that's your self-talk, your internal dialogue. What are you telling yourself all day long? Are you building yourself up or tearing yourself down? Most people have the worst roommate in the world living in their head, and that roommate never shuts up. You're not smart enough. You can't do this. You're going to fail. Who do you think you are? Would you let someone follow you around all day saying those things out loud? Of course not. So why do you let yourself say them? On day one, you've got to fire that roommate. You've got to start paying attention to your self-talk and changing it. Instead of "I can't afford it," try "How can I afford it?" Instead of "I'm not good at that," try "I'm learning to get better at that." Instead of "This always happens to me," try "What can I learn from this?" It sounds simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. You've got to catch yourself, correct yourself, train yourself to think differently. The books you read, that's your input. You're either feeding your mind or starving it. You're either growing or dying. There's no neutral ground. I meet people all the time who tell me they don't have time to read. They're too busy. But then I find out they watch television 3 hours a day. They scroll through their phones for another 2 hours. They've got time, they just don't have priorities. On day one, you make a new rule: 30 minutes of reading every single day. Not the news, Not social media, not gossip magazines, books that challenge you, inspire you, teach you something valuable, biographies of successful people, books on personal development, philosophy, history, skills you need to develop. 30 minutes, that's it. But you do it every day without exception. Here's what happens when you do that. In 1 year, you'll have read at least 12 books. In 5 years, 60 books. In 10 years, over 100 books. Do you know how much wisdom is in 100 books? Do you know how far ahead of the average person you'll be if you consistently feed your mind good information? It's staggering, but most people won't do it. They'll say they're too busy, too tired, too whatever, and 5 years from now, they'll be in exactly the same place, wondering why nothing changed. Now we come to the big one, the company you keep. This is where day one gets uncomfortable because this is where you have to make some tough decisions about the people in your life. I'm going to give you an assignment, and if you do it honestly, it might hurt a little bit. Get out a piece of paper and write down the names of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Not the people you see occasionally, the people you actually spend regular time with. Your closest friends, your family members you hang around with, your coworkers you have lunch with. Write down their names. Now, next to each name, write down how that person influences you. Are they positive or negative? Are they going somewhere or going nowhere? Do they challenge you to be better or encourage you to stay comfortable? Do they have dreams and goals, or do they just complain about their circumstances? Be honest. This isn't about judging people or thinking you're better than them. This is about recognizing influence. Here's a truth that changed my life. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you hang around 5 broke people, you'll be the 6th. If you hang around 5 people who complain all the time, you'll become a complainer. If you hang around 5 people with no ambition, your own ambition will slowly die. That's not a theory, that's a law. It's as reliable as gravity. I had a friend years ago, we'd been friends since childhood. Good guy, loyal, fun to be around. But he was stuck. He worked the same dead-end job, made the same money, had the same complaints. Every time we got together, it was the same conversation. The boss was unfair. The government was taking too much. Life was hard. Nothing ever changed. And I realized that every time I spent time with him, I left feeling drained and discouraged. His negativity was contagious. I had to make a decision. And it was one of the hardest decisions I ever made. I didn't cut him out of my life completely, but I limited our time together. Instead, I started spending more time with people who were building something, creating something, going somewhere. People who read books and talked about ideas. People who had goals and were working toward them. People who inspired me instead of draining me. Some people will call that selfish. They'll say you're abandoning your old friends. But here's what I learned. You can't help people by joining them in their misery. You can't lift people up by staying down with them. The best thing you can do for the people you care about is become successful yourself, become strong yourself, become wise yourself. Then you actually have something to offer them. On day one, you've got to assess your associations. You've got to look at who's influencing you and decide if that influence is taking you where you want to go. This doesn't mean you have to be cruel or judgmental, but it does mean you have to be honest. And it might mean you have to have some uncomfortable conversations. It might mean saying no to invitations you used to say yes to. It might mean spending less time with certain people and more time with others. I remember a young man who came to me struggling with this exact issue. He said, "Mr. Rohn, my family keeps pulling me back down. Every time I try to do better, they criticize me. They tell me I'm getting too big for my britches. They make fun of my goals. What do I do?" I told him the same thing I'm telling you. Love them, but don't let them program you. You can care about people without letting them control your life. You can be kind without being controlled. Here's what you do with the rest of day one after you've assessed your associations. You clean up your consumption. Everything you're taking in, food, media, entertainment, conversations. If it's not making you better, it's making you worse. So you stop eating junk that makes you feel terrible. You stop watching shows that glorify dysfunction. You stop listening to music that puts you in a negative state. You stop having conversations that go nowhere. Instead, you spend your evening planning. You write out your new personal philosophy. What do you believe about life? About success? About yourself? What are your new standards? What kind of person are you becoming? Write it down. Make it real. Make it concrete. By the end of day one, you should feel lighter. Not because everything's fixed, but because you've created space. You've removed clutter, physical clutter, mental clutter, social clutter. You've made room for something new to grow. And that's what day two is all about. Planting new seeds, building new disciplines, setting new standards. But first you had to prepare the soil. That's day one. That's where transformation begins. Day two is when you stop running from your old life and start running toward your new one. Yesterday was about subtraction, getting rid of what doesn't serve you. Today is about addition, installing the disciplines and standards that successful people live by. And here's what you need to understand right from the start. Discipline isn't about willpower. It's not about grinding your teeth and forcing yourself to do things you hate. Discipline is about systems. It's about setting up your life so that doing the right things becomes automatic. Think about a farmer. When a farmer plants seeds in the spring, he doesn't stand over those seeds every day yelling at them to grow. He doesn't pray for a miracle. He doesn't hope that somehow, magically, a harvest will appear. He plants the right seeds in the right soil at the right time. He waters them. He pulls the weeds. He follows a system that farmers have followed for thousands of years. And then, when the time comes, he harvests what he planted. That's not luck, that's law. The same law applies to your life. You can't harvest what you don't plant. If you plant discipline, you'll harvest success. If you plant lazy habits, you'll harvest struggle. If you plant reading and learning, you'll harvest wisdom. If you plant junk food and television, you'll harvest poor health and an empty mind. It's that simple. And day two is planting day. The morning is where everything starts. Most people lose their day before it even begins. They wake up, hit the snooze button 3 times, stumble out of bed with barely enough time to shower and rush out the door. They haven't fed their mind. They haven't moved their body. They haven't thought about what they want to accomplish. They're already behind, already reactive, already letting the world tell them how their day is going to go. Successful people do it differently. They win the morning. They get up before they have to, before the phone starts ringing, before the emails start pouring in, before everyone else starts making demands on their time. They claim that quiet hour for themselves, and they use it to do 3 things. They feed their mind with reading, they move their body with exercise, and they plan their day with intention. 30 minutes of reading, we talked about this yesterday, but now you actually do it. This morning, you read something that makes you think, something that challenges you, something that adds value to your mind. Not the news with all its negativity, not social media with all its distractions. A real book by someone who knows more than you do about something that matters. 30 minutes of exercise, and I don't care what kind. Walk, run, lift weights, do yoga, ride a bike, just move your body. Because here's what happens when you exercise first thing in the morning. You prove to yourself that you can do hard things. You build confidence. You create energy. You set a tone for the day that says, I'm someone who takes care of myself. I'm someone who does what needs to be done. 30 minutes of planning. This is where you look at your day and decide what matters most. What are the 3 most important things you need to accomplish today? Not 10 things, not 20 things. 3. Write them down. Everything else is secondary. You do those 3 things and you win the day. That's your morning. 90 minutes that will change your life if you do it consistently. And here's the key word, consistently. Not when you feel like it, not when it's convenient. Every single day. Because success isn't about what you do occasionally, it's about what you do consistently. I knew an executive once who was struggling. His business was in trouble, his health was declining, his marriage was rocky, everything was falling apart. He came to one of my seminars, desperate for answers. I gave him the morning routine. I said, do this every day for 90 days and see what happens. He looked at me like I was crazy. He said, that's it? That's your big solution? I said, that's it, but you have to actually do it. 3 months later, he called me. His voice was different, stronger, more confident. He said, I don't know how to explain this, but everything changed. My business turned around. I lost 20 pounds. My wife says, I'm a different person. All I did was what you told me, read, exercise, plan, every single morning. I can't believe how different I feel. That's the power of discipline. That's the power of doing the right things consistently, even when you don't see immediate results. Because here's what most people don't understand. Discipline is making deposits in your future. Every time you do the right thing, you're putting money in the bank of your life. You might not see the balance go up today or tomorrow, but it's accumulating. And one day, you'll be able to make a withdrawal that changes everything. Now, there's another concept that goes hand in hand with discipline, and that's standards. Goals are fine. I've got nothing against goals. But standards are more powerful than goals. A goal is something you want to achieve. A standard is something you refuse to fall below. Goals have an end point. Standards are forever. If your goal is to lose 20 pounds, what happens when you lose the 20 pounds? You celebrate, you relax your discipline, and eventually the weight comes back. But if your standard is, I'm someone who takes care of my body, then it doesn't matter if you lose the weight or not, you keep doing the right things because that's who you are. That's your identity. That's your standard. On day 2, you set standards in 4 areas: finances, health, relationships, and personal development. You decide what you will no longer tolerate from yourself. Maybe your financial standard is, I always pay myself first. 10% of every dollar goes to savings before I spend a dime on anything else. Maybe your health standard is, I only put food in my body that makes me stronger and healthier. Maybe your relationship standard is, I only invest time in people who inspire me and support my growth. Maybe your personal development standard is, I spend at least 1 hour every day learning something new. These aren't goals you're trying to reach. These are lines you're drawing in the sand. This is who you are now. This is the new you. And when you live by standards instead of just chasing goals, everything shifts because you're not trying to achieve something external. You're becoming someone internal. The difference between interest and commitment shows up here. Interested people do things when it's convenient. Committed people do things no matter what. Interested people try. Committed people do. Interested people have excuses. Committed people have results. On day 2, you move from interest to commitment. You decide that these disciplines, these standards, they're non-negotiable. Before you go to bed on day 2, you do an evening review. You ask yourself 3 questions. What did I learn today? What could I have done better? What will I do differently tomorrow? This isn't about beating yourself up. This is about continuous improvement. This is about becoming 1% better every single day. That's day 2. You've planted good seeds. You've set high standards. You've proven to yourself that you can do hard things. And now, something interesting is about to happen. Day 3 is when you feel the shift, when the new you starts to emerge. Something happens on day 3 that you can't quite explain to someone who hasn't experienced it. It's not just that you think differently, you feel differently. There's an energy, a clarity, a sense of possibility that wasn't there 72 hours ago. You wake up and you're not the same person who started this process. You've done things differently for 2 straight days, and your body, your mind, your spirit, they're responding. This is the compound effect in action. One right decision doesn't change your life, but one right decision followed by another, followed by another, followed by another, that creates momentum. And momentum is the most powerful force in personal development. When you have momentum, things that seemed impossible start to seem achievable. Obstacles that looked insurmountable start to look like challenges you can handle. Life doesn't get better by chance, it gets better by change. And you've been changing for 3 days now. You've cleaned house. You've installed new disciplines. You've set new standards. You've shown yourself that transformation isn't some mysterious process that happens to other people. It's a decision followed by action, repeated until it becomes who you are. But here's where most people stumble. They get to day 3, they feel good, they see some progress, and then they think, okay, I've got this figured out now. I can relax a little bit. And they go right back to their old ways. They skip the morning routine. They hang out with the same negative people. They fall back into the same lazy habits. And within a week, they're right back where they started, wondering what happened. The critical transition isn't from day 1 to day 3. It's from day 3 to day 21. From 3 days to 3 weeks. From 3 weeks to 3 months. From 3 months to 3 years. This is about building a life, not just having a good weekend. This is about becoming someone new, not just feeling different for a moment. So how do you protect your progress? How do you make sure that 3 days becomes a lifetime? You set up systems that support your success. First, you find an accountability partner. Someone who's on the same path, who has the same commitment to growth. You check in with each other every day. You share your wins. You admit your struggles. You keep each other honest. Second, you measure your progress. Every week, you sit down and assess where you are. How do you feel compared to last week? What have you learned? What habits are sticking? What areas still need work? You can't manage what you don't measure. And when you track your progress, you see growth. Even small growth is motivating. Third, you practice the philosophy of constant and never-ending improvement. Every day you ask yourself, how can I be 1% better today than I was yesterday? Just 1%. Not perfect, not transformed overnight, just a little bit better. Read one more page, do one more rep, make one better choice, that's it. But you do it every day. And here's what happens when you improve 1% every day for a year. You don't become 365% better. Because of compounding, you become 37 times better. 37 times. That's the power of small, consistent improvements over time. But most people never experience it because they're looking for the big breakthrough, the overnight success, the lottery ticket. They don't understand that real transformation is quiet, steady, daily work that nobody sees until suddenly everyone sees. When setbacks come, and they will come, you don't let them define you. You don't use one bad day as an excuse to quit. You get back on track immediately. You don't wait for Monday. You don't wait for next month. You don't wait for New Year's. You course correct right now, in the next moment, with the next decision. Here's the truth about transformation, and I want you to hear this clearly. It's available to anyone willing to do what successful people do. Not what they say, not what they wish, not what they intend, what they actually do. Day after day, week after week, year after year. There's no secret, there's no shortcut. There's just discipline and time. You don't need to be sick to get better. You don't need to hit rock bottom to decide to climb. You just need to decide that the person you are today isn't the person you're going to be tomorrow. And then you need to start not someday, not when conditions are perfect, not when you feel ready. You start tomorrow morning. You start with day one. Your new life is 3 days away. 3 days of right thinking, 3 days of right action, 3 days of becoming who you were meant to be all along. The question is, will you start? Or will you keep waiting for some day that never comes? So here we are. I've given you the plan, 3 days that can change the trajectory of your entire life. Day one, clean house. Your space, your mind, your associations. Day two, build new disciplines and set standards that reflect the person you're becoming. Day three, feel the shift and commit to protecting your momentum. It's not complicated, but simple doesn't mean it's going to be easy. The real question isn't whether this works. I've seen it work thousands of times. I've lived it myself. The real question is whether you'll actually do it, whether you'll stop talking about change and start being the change, whether you'll stop waiting for perfect conditions and start working with what you've got right now. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Failure is nothing more than a few small errors in judgment repeated every day. The difference between where you are and where you want to be isn't some giant leap, it's the accumulation of daily choices. What you do today matters. What you do tomorrow matters. What you do the day after that matters even more. 3 days from now, you can be a different person. Not completely transformed, not finished, but different. Stronger, clearer, more confident, with momentum, with proof that change is possible, with evidence that you're capable of more than you've been settling for. But it starts with a decision. Right now, not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Decide that you're done with excuses. Decide that you're done blaming circumstances. Decide that you're taking full responsibility for your life and your future. The life you want is waiting for you on the other side of 3 days of commitment. The person you're meant to be is ready to emerge. All you have to do is start. So what's it going to be? Are you ready? Your 3 days begin now.